Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there is a ton of news stories to get into today. And we're going to talk about the world of AEW and this big story regarding Platinum Max Caster, one half of the Acclaimed, and the controversy surrounding his controversial freestyle rap that aired on AEW Dark last week, subsequently got removed, edited. Tony Khan then went on Busted Open Radio and said that he was now going to be personally editing both Dark and Dark Elevation. He wasn't happy about it. Social media wasn't happy about it as well. There's been more developments when it comes to this and the status of Max Caster in AEW, because AEW reportedly, and it must be stressed here, reportedly, it hasn't been confirmed by All Elite Wrestling themselves, but reportedly, AEW has suspended Max Caster from the company. Now, as noted previously, the Acclaimed, of course, Caster and Anthony Bowens, versus Hunter Knott and Rosario Grillo had been announced for last night's AEW Dark episode on YouTube, but then AEW deleted the Twitter announcement and reposted it with no mention of that match. It was subsequently, a lot of people were speculating, okay, what's going on? Something's going on because they pulled the announcement, they pulled the match, something had changed, and obviously considering that Tony Khan is now editing the show, one would suggest he had a big part in that. So it was speculated that the Acclaimed was pulled from last night's show, again, due to the fallout from last week's controversial rap by Caster on the 100th episode of AEW Dark. Now, if you missed this, or if you're not familiar with this issue, AEW edited Caster's controversial rap out of last Tuesday's Dark show after he made controversial references to Olympian Simone Biles and the 2006 Duke Lacrosse scandal. And, of course, AEW's Julia Hart, who's there with the Varsity Blondes at ringside. Now, we spoke about it last week extensively here on the channel, so you can be sure to check it out there. It's difficult to find that footage now because the footage, obviously, immediately after it aired, people weren't happy with it and it floated around on social media. I think if you try hard enough, you can probably find it. But AEW filed copyright claims to have the footage removed from social media very quickly. They were very, very aware of this backlash. They weren't happy about it, and they did their best to get it gone, get it removed from YouTube, from social media, from Twitter, from Facebook, everywhere. And it's subsequently quite difficult to find. Now, in an update, this is according to Ringside News, so take that with what you will, because their track record is spotty, to say the least, and I would take it with a pinch of salt. But it's been reported that Caster has been suspended for 2 months without pay, and it was noted that Caster may also have to enter sensitivity training and pass those courses before he's being brought back, in a similar vein to Sammy Guevara last year with the Sasha Banks controversy with some comments he made back in, I think it was 2016. Those comments resurfaced. He was suspended without pay for 30 days, I think. Had to go under sensitivity training, donated all of his pay to a local charity in Jacksonville, Florida. I don't know if those circumstances are exactly the same, but it seems very similar to what happened with Sammy Guevara last year too. Now, Fightful Select has also reported on this, and they provided a bit more information. Now, they haven't gone as far to say that Max Caster has been suspended by AEW, but Fightful Select reported that Caster was, quote, put on ice for the time being, and there weren't going to be any more appearances from him in the near future, which a lot of people could read into and say, well, that's pretty much a suspension. That's just a different way of saying it without saying he has been suspended. But they did not mention that Caster was officially suspended. I would assume because they haven't been told that. But if they're saying that he was put on ice or he's sitting out, even if AEW haven't officially said it's a suspension, it kind of feels like that, doesn't it? Now, after the Acclaimed match was pulled from AEW Dark yesterday morning, Caster removed the references to the team and from AEW from his Twitter bio, but reportedly he is still with the company. That's what Fightful are saying, and Ringside News are saying that he was just suspended. Now, Caster has been quiet on social media since last week's promo was edited from the 100th episode of AEW Dark. Now, again, Tony Khan was very vocal about not being happy about this whole situation last week when he was on Busted Open Radio show. This is what he had to say about it last last week. He said, quote, "Last night on Dark, Max Caster's rap was terrible. I was not out there in the moment that he did it. It was not during Dynamite. I was out back when Max had said this rap. I had not heard it until last night, truthfully. In the editing process, it should have been caught. We deleted the episode and reposted it with that edited out, but it shouldn't have aired. I put such tight controls on Dynamite that it would have never happened there because Max's raps, I've always gone over with him there. And frankly, every segment on Dynamite, I don't write or script any promos, but the bullet points I give. So in this case, it shouldn't have happened. And what will happen going forward is I will be taking over the editing of Dark and Dark Elevation myself. I was already editing Dynamite and Rampage, and I do a lot, and now I'll be editing Dark and Elevation. It's unfortunate that it came to that. Now, that sounds like a guy that's not happy at all, that he's having to do more work. And Tony Khan does a lot anyway. He mentioned it. He does a lot, not just with AEW. He's a busy guy. You know, he does work with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He is the director of football at Fulham Football Club. He has all of his other businesses. He has a chain of hotels. He has a company that does analytics for the NFL. He has music acts that he has a company that signs them to. He's a busy guy, and the reason why he didn't edit Dark and Dark Elevation is because there are other more important things he needs to be doing. But I think he's realized now, with this controversy about Max Caster, that something like this is really damaging to a company. Bad publicity is really damaging to a company, especially in this modern age of social media. And these things have slipped through the cracks a couple of times on Dark, where we've seen botches, or we've seen things where I recall an episode where I think it was a spot of Luchasaurus and the spot didn't do well, and they essentially did a cut. We'll do the spot again, and that wasn't edited out, and it looks Bush League, and people criticized AEW for it at the time, and this is obviously on another level, but obviously Tony Khan feels that now he has to take control of Dark and Dark Elevation. When it comes to this suspension, I know this whole controversy has polarized a lot of people, and for me, I think it's from Max Caster's point of view, I think it's unfortunate. I do think it's unfortunate. Look, he said it, and he has to live with the consequences of saying it. There's no doubt about that, and I'm certainly not giving him a pass for what he said. I wasn't a fan of what he said. I know some people have their opinions on the Simone Biles thing, but even that, I think, was too much. I personally, myself, am a big mental health advocate, and for me, it's not acceptable to make fun of it, trivialize it, or make light of it. It's a serious illness, and when you trivialize it and you make fun of it, you push the stigma back. And we're trying to get a situation where we're breaking the stigma, we're smashing the stigma. We can have conversations openly about mental health and about the issues there, because there are a lot of the times there aren't any physical symptoms. You can't see it, and people even in this day don't believe that it's real, which is madness. And the biggest problem with mental health is the ability to speak out, the ability to say you need help. And things like this, when you trivialize it or you make fun of people for speaking out and getting help, that prevents other people from speaking out and getting help. So I'm really not a fan of trivializing it. The Duke Lacrosse stuff, that's just too far. It's got no place. I know people have tried to justify it as he's trying to get heat. He's a heel. That's what heels do. Heels get heat. And if this was 1995 or this was the Attitude Era, you wouldn't care. That's a valid argument, but it's not the Attitude Era. It's not 1998. It's not 1999. It's 2021. And to say that stuff nowadays, whether you like it or not, is unacceptable. Certainly, the Duke Lacrosse stuff is unacceptable. Find a better way of getting heat. It's cheap heat. It's easy heat. And I know people will say, well, that's the gimmick. That's his rap. You can still do that. There's a line, though. There's a line in everything. And some people are very good at walking up to the line and walking around it and not stepping over it, and that's what Max Caster has done in the past, but he stepped over the line. Ultimately, there is a degree of sympathy that, like Tony Khan said, if this was on Dynamite, he would say, this is what I'm going to say, and Tony Khan would say, nope, you can't say that, do something different. And obviously that situation wasn't there on Dark and Dark Elevation, but that's when it comes to Tony Khan trusted the performer, and those within AEW trusted the performer to get it right and to be not politically correct. I don't think that's the right term, but to be sensitive in these kind of situations, and he wasn't. So he does have to live by those consequences. And ultimately, he said it because he thought it was acceptable, and it's not. So maybe there does need to be a degree of sensitivity training of this kind of stuff isn't acceptable. This kind of trivializing mental health and pointing fun at these kind of scandals isn't right. And from a pro wrestling point of view, I understand you're a heel, but there are other ways to get heat. I'm glad that he's not fired. I don't think he should get fired for anything like that. But is there a degree of you have to understand why this is unacceptable, and you've put the company in a position where we have to do something. If we just don't do anything, it makes us look bad. We've got deals with the likes of Warner Media, and they don't want to be perceived to be paying money for brands that are insensitive or talents that are insensitive. It's a difficult position for AEW and Tony Khan. Is the suspension the right thing? Well, I suppose they set a precedent last year, right? They set a precedent when it comes to Sammy Guevara, because again, with the Sammy Guevara stuff, people were outraged by that as well on both sides of the fence. There were certainly people that were saying, I don't care when he made those comments, they're unacceptable, AEW needs to do something. On the other side of it, people were saying, well, those comments were 5 years ago, however many years ago it was. People have moved on, people change, people grow. AEW, I think, probably managed the situation correctly, because fast forward a year later and people don't really talk about it anymore, and it's been moved on. Everyone involved has moved on, and everyone's happy with the relevant apologies. And I think they'll probably handle it a similar way here, that Max Caster will be back. A year from now, people will move on. It's a controversy for right now, but the ultimate thing for AEW is to not act too rashly, and I think they probably held this the right way, but they had to do something. I would hope that these reports, when they come out, it's not just Max Caster being punished in this sense, because it shouldn't be just him that gets punished. Ultimately, like I said, he said it. But there are people, whether it's the editors, whether it's the agents, whether it's whoever, they also need to be punished, because they're the ones that allowed it to happen as well. And that should be pointed out too. So it is an unfortunate situation. I hope it doesn't lead to anything more, or him leaving the company, because I'm a Max Caster fan. I think he's got a ton of potential. I think he's a real bright talent. I've liked his raps. I think his rap gimmick's good. I know people compare it to John Cena's early Dr. Thugonomics gimmick and all that. It's similar, because it's a rap gimmick and it's a freestyle that puts down whoever's in the ring. But his other raps have been very entertaining, and the Acclaimed are a very good tag team. And they're a tag team that AEW have put together themselves. And they're a team that are very entertaining and a lot of people like. So it would be silly for AEW to fire Max Caster over something silly like this, because there's money to be made still with that tag team and with Max Caster and AEW. But there just does need to be a situation of, look, Max, when you do these freestyles now, can you just say what you're going to say, or the subject matter and all that kind of stuff? And maybe that's the way to go around it. And I know people won't like that, but that's the day and age that we're living in right now, unfortunately. So it'll be interesting to see when Max Caster is back. I don't think he'll be leaving AEW or anything like that, because that would just be, I think that would be over the top. But AEW, of course, does need to do something. Now, some interesting news about AEW Rampage, because, of course, this week it's the debut episode. It's the premiere of AEW Rampage on TNT, which a lot of people are excited about. The interesting thing, of course, is that despite the premiere episode being on Friday, I think a lot of people are more excited about next week's Rampage show at the United Center in Chicago, which is obviously going to feature, or probably going to feature, the debut of CM Punk. We've got some Punk news we'll talk about later on. But Fight TV has officially added the weekly 1 hour AEW Rampage show to their AEW Plus service for fans outside of the United States, for people like us that want to watch Rampage live. Whilst the rest of the world is doing it, that's how you're going to do it. So Fight's AEW Plus package costs $4.99 a month and includes weekly Rampage live stream, the weekly Dynamite live stream, on-demand replays, select premium pass events and pay-per-views. To be honest, it's a very good deal. It's a real good deal. $4.99 is nothing, especially in terms of the conversion rate as well. For us over here, it really is nothing. So if you haven't already, I would definitely recommend to sign up to the AEW Plus package. It's the best way to watch Dynamite, the best way to watch Rampage, etc., and all of the events and on-demand services they offer as well. So if you are outside of the United States, that's where it's going to happen. Fans in Canada are going to be watching Rampage via the TSN direct streaming service. On a related note, F4W Online is reporting that AEW has closed a new deal with Space Channel in Latin America, which also airs AAA Lucha Libre. It was noted that Latin America viewers who used to buy Fight TV's AEW Plus package were told that as of Monday, September 6th, the package will no longer be available in Latin America, because the Space Channel has exclusive rights to AEW programming moving forward. So that's going to be the situation there. When it comes to Rampage, that's going to air in France. It's going to air on Toonami and on Eurosport in India. That was a big deal that was just signed by AEW as well. So there's lots of moving parts when it comes to this. It was announced obviously last week as well that the AEW Rampage commentary team will include Mark Henry, Chris Jericho, Excalibur and Taz. It will remain to be seen if it is legitimately a 4-person booth, because that is way too much. Way too much. I prefer the 2-person booth anyway. The 3-person booth, I think you can get away with. I think it's difficult because you have to pick your spots. A 4-person booth, I think, is way too much. Again, I say it will remain to be seen whether or not that is legitimately a 4-person booth, because I could see a situation where, say, Excalibur, Taz, and Jericho are the commentary team, whereas Mark Henry is, say, the Tony Schiavone. In that situation, he's doing the in-ring interviews, or he's doing something else, or sit-down interviews. If it is a 4-person booth, that's too much. That is too much. The issue that they've kind of had for themselves, I suppose, AEW, is that obviously when they signed Taz, I think, the promise was made that we're going to have this 3rd show on TNT. You'll be the commentator for that. When they signed Mark Henry, they said, you'll be the commentator for that. But then they kind of realized Jericho's a great commentator too, and we need a play-by-play guy, which is Excalibur. So they've kind of backed themselves into a corner when it comes to that. So it'll be interesting to be seen if that is a legitimate 4-person booth. Of course, if Jericho's going to wrestle on the show, maybe that's a good point as well, that in the weeks that Jericho's wrestling, it'll be a 3-person booth. So Jericho won't always, if he's got segments on the show, he won't always be featured as a commentator. But maybe this is the next part of the progression of Jericho's career. Of course, he does commentary anyway a few times on Dynamite. He's mentioned that he would be interested in doing that. I recall Tony Khan saying that he sees Tony Schiavone and Chris Jericho as like his Gorilla and Bobby Heenan, or his Gorilla Monsoon and Jesse Ventura from the Saturday Night's Main Event day. So maybe that's the direction they're going in with that. But I think that's too much. I do think that's too much. Fights listing for Friday's Rampage premiere notes that AEW World Champion Kenny Omega will be in action. His opponent has yet to be revealed. It was previously announced that hometown star and AEW World Women's Champion Britt Baker will defend her Women's Championship against Red Velvet in the premiere. As of right now, I don't think anything else has been announced. But again, this is a 1-hour show, so it's how much you've got to realistically fit in that hour. There's not going to be as many things announced as it would be for Dynamite. So very interested to see Rampage on Friday. Of course, fascinated to see the ratings and the viewership, because AEW, the Friday Night Dynamites that were later on, struggled in that time slot. I don't expect Rampage to do Dynamite numbers at all. Maybe in the first couple of weeks, maybe next week as well with Punk's debut. That might play into it, but there's a lot going on when it comes to Rampage right now, so it's very exciting to say the least. Speaking of Punk, of course, with Punk coming back to pro wrestling, making his pro wrestling return, there's been a lot of discussion about ring rust. What's he going to look like? Is he going to be moving around as well in the ring as he once did? Well, it sounds like ring rust won't be an issue when it comes to CM Punk making his return to the squared circle. Now, Punk is expected to make his AEW debut possibly on the August 20 edition of AEW Rampage, the first dance from the United Center in Chicago, or possibly at All Out Weekend in early September. Punk will also be featured, or at least on one episode of the Heels Pro Wrestling show that premieres on Stars on Sunday, August 15. Now, Punk plays a wrestler called Ricky Rabies on the show, a heel character. Now, in an update, this is a report by Fightful Select, their Patreon channel, be sure to check that out. Punk has been training on his own as of late, according to Fightful. And he's also received praise from the in-ring training he did for the Heels show. It was noted that wrestlers and cast members who worked with Punk over the past 6 months on the Star show had promising things to say about his in-ring abilities. One source noted that Punk looked, quote, completely healthy, especially in comparison to the end of his WWE run in 2013 and 2014. Another source indicated that Punk was, quote, very good in the ring, to the point where they wondered if he had indeed been training in private leading up to being in the ring with other workers on the show. A third source indicated that Punk was working so well in the ring, it was like he'd never left the business. So a lot of people are saying Punk looks really good. Look, he's a perfectionist. He mentioned this himself. When he spoke about if he would ever to return to the ring, that he's a perfectionist, and he would be cycling however many miles a day, and he would be doing everything to get in shape. So of course he's going to be good. So I have no surprise about that. I was thinking this when I was prepping for the show here, that so Punk started doing the heel stuff, I think it was last year, wasn't it? He grew his hair out, and he was working on the heel show sometime last year, maybe even towards the end of 2019, but certainly in 2020. And it does make you wonder, doesn't it, that he had to actively get back in the ring to do the heel stuff. And it makes you wonder if once he started training, and once he started rolling around with people in the ring, and once he started doing some bumps and all that kind of stuff, it makes you wonder if that was the moment that, bang, the bug was back. And training and taking bumps and training in the ring, and he thought, you know what, not only can I do this, but I want to do this. It'll be interesting to see if he comes out and say that. I don't know if that's the case. That's speculation on my part, but that would certainly be interesting to see if that was the case. Finally, Joey Janela has turned heel, and I know people will be saying, so what? But Joey Janela has turned heel, and he's declared that the Bad Boy Summer is here. On Dark Elevation on Monday on YouTube, Janela turned on his tag team partner Sonny Kiss as they came out for a tag team match against Baron Black and the debuting DMC. Janela pulled a shocker by super kicking Kiss on the ramp during their entrance. Janela then took out their would-be opponents as they came to check on Kiss and finished Kiss off with a pile driver on the steel ledge. Fans in the arena responded with "Joey sucks and you still suck" chants as Janela taunted the crowd. The segment ended with officials helping Kiss to his feet at ringside. Despite this being mid-August, Janela took to Twitter and announced that the Bad Boy Summer has begun. He said the Bad Boy Summer has begun. He noted in a follow-up tweet that he turned on his partner because of mainstream pro wrestling fans. He said, "I did what I did not because Sonny, it's because most mainstream wrestling fans are absolute losers, mutant scum, always arguing about ratings, what's wrestling and what's not, who's dating who, body shaming, what's going on backstage. Now you have a reason to really hate me. This comes from the heart. If you stood by me through the years, thank you. If not, you partook in any of these activities, you belong in a hole." So that's the storyline, I guess, that's going on Dark Elevation. I'll be honest with you, I struggle to catch that show. There's so much pro wrestling that's on anyway. But Joey Janela's the heel. Even though I thought he had turned on Sonny Kiss ages ago, I recall them splitting up a long time ago. I guess they were back together, and now Joey Janela once again has turned on Sonny Kiss. So that's the storyline that's going on Dark Elevation. But look, guys, as always, this is just one man's opinion. What are your thoughts on all these AEW news stories we've spoken about today? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. I'll do my best to respond and reply to all of your comments. Really enjoy interacting with you guys, talking about AEW, Impact Wrestling, New Japan Pro Wrestling, WWE, all things pro wrestling here on the channel. So be sure to get involved in the community, drop a comment below. All opinions are welcome. If you have enjoyed this video, please do smash a like on the like button too. Really does help us out here on YouTube. Got the rankings and get into people's recommendation feeds if they haven't seen our videos previously. But most importantly, if you haven't already, please do subscribe to Wrestling News 365. You can do that by clicking the bottom right-hand corner of the screen right now. Or if you wait a few seconds, there'll be a subscribe button at the end of this video, along with another video for you to watch. Thank you very much for watching, listening, streaming, or have you come across this video today. And I'll speak to you again very, very soon.
Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.